welcome to the Purlsbeforethyme Knitting Podcast. I'm Elise, and today I am wearing the No Frills sweater by Petiteknit. This is one of the first sweater patterns I actually ever knit, from a pattern that is, and it has definitely stood the test of time. It is 3 years old, maybe 4 at this point, and I've worn it very regularly. It's made in Auer in the shade lilac or syren in Norwegian, and the contrast color is a strand of mohair, which is dyed by a dyer called Perler. I don't know if they're still around, but I found them on Instagram, and they have this fun shade with like a few, base of lilac, but then a few bits of like blue and like dark purple, and I thought it was fun. And yeah, it's really nice and cozy and warm, and it feels very sort of spring-like with, I don't know, I feel like my mood is very springy at the moment, and unfortunately outside is not reflecting that because it is snowy here. And I can't wait for that to be done now. I've had enough of the snow and being cold and wet and all of that. So I'm ready for some green, some flowers. Yeah, but because it's going to be spring, I've been thinking a lot about, color and new things, and I've been thinking a lot about yarn dyeing and how I really enjoyed doing that a while ago and how I would quite like to do some more. But I thought I would just share with you some yarn dyeing techniques and how you can actually dye yarn at home without complex chemicals. So if you know anything about dyeing, this probably isn't so interesting, but if you know more details, so what happens with the dyeing process is you take wool and then you put it in a mordant bath. So you simmer it with a chemical fixative, and what that does is it means that the yarn goes through a process where it becomes very good at holding color when you do then dye it. And those chemicals that you use for that, the mordants, they can be a bit strong. You need to ventilate well. You need to do this in with a window open is recommended. So, if you're just at home and you want to have some fun with the yarn dyeing in your kitchen, that might not be so attractive. So even though I have done that, it is quite a process, and it's an extra layer of, washing the yarn, mordanting the yarn, rinsing the yarn, and then dyeing the yarn. So it's like a whole lot of, cleaning and drying and blah, blah, blah that adds time and effort. So there are a few things you can do at home without mordanting that work quite well. I've done a few, and I kind of want to do some more. So the first thing that I really enjoy the time I did it is I don't like throwing things away. And one thing I don't like throwing away is avocado pips. So I will propagate avocado pips, or I will keep them. And so here's my little tree. So I often have a couple of little sprouts, and they'll get to a certain size, and they don't get that big, but they make me happy. But what you can do with avocado pips and with the skins is if you clean all of the avocado flesh out and rinse them, you can then actually use that to make dye. And what's really nice about that is that, am I recording? Just give me a second. Yes. Sorry, I just had a mind blank there. So with the avocado, once it's all rinsed, you can put it in a dye bath. And what's lovely about it is there are natural tannins within the avocado, particularly the skins. And that means that it fixes pretty well to the yarn, with particular focus on animal fibers. So I've only ever dyed animal fibers very successfully. I have attempted to dye plant fibers. I tried to dye some linen once and it didn't go all that well. That was, I think, with onion, and it just didn't really hold the color very well. But with sheep wool, I've had a lot of success. So I hope this shows up on camera. I'm a bit unsure, but we can try. So this is the shade I got when I dyed with avocado. If it's a bit pale on camera, I can just insert a picture of what it does look like. So this is lamb's wool and this is alpaca. So the alpaca is a lot paler, so it didn't absorb as much color. They are from the same dye bath, but I did the lamb's wool first and then I did the alpaca, so that's also why the alpaca is paler. And it's this really lovely sort of dusky pink. Is it dusky or is it dusty? I don't know. It's like a sort of pale pink color and I really like it. This I did with both a mixture of pips and skins. But I have also seen that if you just do pips or skins, it gives you slightly different shades. So I think one of them leans a little bit more reddishy orange and the other one leans more pinky purple. But when you mix them, it just ends up with this kind of pinky shade. And obviously the more pips and the more skins you use, the more intense the color. So I didn't actually use that much for this. I think I used 3 pips and skins from 3 avocados for this. And I'm only showing one skein, but I do have a sweater quantity of yarn. So I think I have 400 or 500 grams and then, 300 grams, no, 150 grams of this, but it's lace weight. So, I got quite a lot out of this. My plan with it, since I made it rather, has been to make a very sort of plain everyday sweater with it, but a little bit more elegant. So a pattern that I've had in mind for this yarn is the Auer, but spelled A-U-E-R, sweater pattern by Sari Nordlund, which is a really, really lovely sweater by Sari, as I said, and I think it's worked bottom up, but it's got this really cool short row shoulder shaping that I think is really elegant and neat, and it's got quite wide arms at the top, this part. So that's something I still really want to make with this, but it's not on the list for this year because I have other things this year. But I don't mind having yarn with a project in mind in my stash for a while. It's quite pleasant to just have it there and be like, oh, I had a nice time making it. Okay, and then onto the next yarn that I've made, that I've dyed myself. I don't have the project I made from this, but I have used it. So I have this beautiful honey colored wool. This is just sheep wool. It's DK weights. I don't remember exactly the brand or anything. But this was made with coffee, and coffee also has tannins in it, so it also holds color very well. So this I used to make the Humlebi shawl by Fiber Tales. It's a really lovely pattern. I highly, highly recommend it, particularly for people who are not big into shawls. So the hard part I've always found with shawls is, especially if you start at the bottom and then the rows just get longer and longer and longer, the motivation to do a row gets lower and lower. But what's really nice with this shawl is you start on the longest part, so you cast on a hell of a lot of stitches and then you decrease as you go, and so it goes so fast at the end. And I think I made it in maybe 4 days. It was so fast, and a lot of it is, there's a big garter section at the end so that you race through the first bit, which is the border, which is stunning. Takes a little bit more time. There's some little lace flowers in it, but they're just made with yarn overs. But the thing that really strikes me with it that's very fun is the bees. So there are these little bees that are made with bobble stitches and some other different techniques that I'm not going to go into, because I think the combination of these techniques to make the bee, I think, is special to this pattern. And Larke, who I like her podcast, so if you haven't seen her as Fiber Tales knitting podcast, she really likes designing with like a technique that has like elements of nature in it, and you can definitely see that in all her patterns. But it is a really lovely pattern. And yeah, I think I've only ever completed 2 shawls. I've started more than that. And that one was my favorite in the process of making it. And I gifted that again to my godmother, and she uses that a lot, and I think she likes it. And as far as I can tell, the color is held very well. One regret I have when I made this though is I just took ground coffee and I threw it in a pot and then I put the yarn in and I simmered it for a while and then I turned it off. And the issue with that was, that the little grounds of coffee all stuck to the yarn. So while it was drying, I had to shake it quite a lot, but even so, there were still like bits of coffee stuck to the yarn. It's kind of gone now because I have brushed it off. It dries enough so it comes off. But yeah, I would recommend filtering your coffee or using like espresso or something where it doesn't actually, have bits in it. So yeah, but yeah, I think as a starter, coffee and avocado are really fun. I've been on the hunt for other things that can give slightly different colors, and my next plan is to actually use onion skins on yarn. I know it's going to give some kind of brown color. I've used onion skins before, but not on yarn. So I really like every year making Easter eggs, and I like making eggs that I can keep forever. And this is something my parents taught me how to do, and they used to make Easter eggs before they had me. And my family has this beautiful collection of Easter eggs. And what we do is you take eggs and then you make a hole in the top and a hole in the bottom, and then you take a needle and you break the yolk up, and then you blow all the contents of the egg out of the hole. And so then you rinse them so they're just shells. And they are surprisingly strong, but they do break. So don't get too attached. But I think my parents have some eggs that are like older than me, so more than 30. And yeah, it's really fun to every Easter hang them all up, and then you see like, oh, when I was 5, I made this egg, or all the eggs through the years. Anyway, these are some that I have for myself, and this one I made with onion. So the process, I've got 2 with onion actually. Let me get the other one as well. So I really like doing flower prints. So this is my other onion one. So I can't remember the exact process, but I think you just make a dye bath with onion skin. And I think you might have to add a little bit of vinegar to it just so it eats away slightly at the outer layer of the shell, and then it sticks quite well. But what I did with these is I took flowers like this is a snowdrop, and I think this is a small daffodil or something that I had in the garden. And then you take, you cut up a pair of tights, and then you put a little bit of tights. I don't know what the grammatically correct way of saying that, but you take a little piece of tights and then you wrap it around with the flower on, and then you dip it in the dye bath, and the tights will hold the flowers in place but also allow the dye through, so that you end up with these fun little prints like that. And I think that this would be a very beautiful color for yarn, this brown. I hope it would hold as well, but that also I think wouldn't require any mordanting either, which is exciting. And yeah, so that's the onions. If you want to do, I think I might do a video on how to do this later, because it's a really fun craft project to do at Easter. And yeah, I have other dyes that I've used for eggs, but I don't think they'd be so successful for yarn. One thing I did that I think worked really well was I took blueberry cordial and I made a dye bath out of that. I wouldn't do that with yarn because I don't think cordial and yarn mix very well. I think you'd end up with a big mess. So, oh wait, no, this one's not cordial. This one is cordial. So yeah, the cordial didn't work that well. The one that did work well is red cabbage. So I made a dye bath with red cabbage and I got this beautiful blue. I really want to know what it would be like to use red cabbage on yarn. I don't know exactly how that would work, but it ended up really nice on this egg with this little leaf imprint that I made. So I think that could work really well too. Yeah, things that didn't work so well, I've tried making dye baths with turmeric, and These are a few years old and they used to be very yellow and now they're very, very pale. And you can, yeah, it was a turmeric powder, so maybe that was probably why, because I feel like turmeric, that the dye is all in the powder, so once the powder kind of falls off, once it's dry, it doesn't really, yeah, give any color to the actual egg. So yeah, I don't know if I would try that, but yeah, I want to try cabbage and onion. I'm very excited for that. Just as a comparison, this is yarn that I have mordanted and yeah, used plant-based dye and fixing agents and lots of chemistry to get this right. This was a lot of work. It took me like 3 or 4 days of dye baths and mordant baths and fixing and rinsing and drying to get this. The result is great, but the thought of doing that again makes me like quite tired and I don't have the time. And I did this on a hot plate outside, which, you know, was fun, but you need good weather and you need all the equipment. I had separate pots for all of this. So yeah, I think what's nice about not having to do that is you can just use your normal kitchen equipment, nothing fancy, and that's nice. But anyway, that's something I'm thinking of doing at some point. And otherwise, I'm nearly finished my snowy forest. So since last week, I have finished 1 sleeve and I am on sleeve number 2. So hopefully in a couple of days, I'll have finished this and then it'll be off to block and it'll be worn. And yeah, so I am going to run out of mohair, which is so annoying because it seems a shame to have to buy a whole new skein of this just to make a little bit of a sleeve. But I do have not an exact shade match. I do own some yarn that is a dark blue but a bit more green than this, and I'm just going to use that because I've got maybe 3 times this amount in that shade, and I think I'd rather just use leftover yarn than buy a whole new skein of yarn for a little bit of sleeve. And if anyone notices it, I think it'll only be in bright light, and I mean, who's gonna know? Just me. And if it's a slightly different color, I'll look at it and I'll love it even more because I don't mind a bit of imperfection in that kind of thing in yarn. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. I haven't finished any projects this year, so hopefully this will be my first big one and that'll be nice and I'll be off to a flying start. So yeah, I hope that was informative and fun, and I'll maybe be back next week with something else to talk about and hopefully a new sweater. So yeah, have a wonderful week. Let me know if you guys have ever tried dyeing yarn at home, what you've used, how it's gone. I'd be really curious to see what other things you can just use from your kitchen and what colors you can get. Oh, quickly, I will just mention, just because I have used it, is I own a book about natural dyeing. There are lots of books out there on this. This just happens to be the one that I own. It is called Wild Colour by Jenny Dean. It's got a really nice intro to dyeing and the process. And then what it's got is just like a huge list of plants where you can find them if you want to forage for your own, and then the different types of shades you can expect with different mordants and fixing agents and on different cloths. So yeah, this is a nice book. I think it's beautiful. I use it for inspiration quite a lot. So yeah, that's all I've really got. So have a wonderful rest of your week, and yeah, goodbye.